Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Uh, Lots going on, isn't it, in the news? Geez, where to even start?
Hmm.
But in a way, Scotty, we don't even really need to. It, we try to take things on a deeper level, and when you do that, the deeper you go, the more interconnected everything gets to the point where all you can see where it's all coming from the same one place. In a sense, that's really the theme of this show today. Not just that, but also how to manage that, and what we can learn and what we can gain from that. Um, the whole thing with guns and gun control and that horrible massacre in Texas, uh, unimaginable. But to not just repeat things that have already been said all over the news, uh, one thing I did notice is that, on the news, there are all these different perspectives about it, right, Scotty?
Yeah.
Um, and different proposals. Some people say, well, there should be one entrance to the schools and there should be a metal detector there. Uh, and, that makes sense. But at the same time, if the person managing the metal detector isn't armed, and then a crazy gunman walked up, the first thing they do is shoot the person running the metal detector and then just barge in. And of course, then people say, well, we should have armed gunmen at all the schools, and other people think that's a horrible idea. They'd rather it be a gun-free zone, and I can understand that. But at the same time, people put up, a big sign, gun-free zone, which means that armed gunmen have a field day. The crazies,
The
So,
thing it reminded me of hearing you talk all the time is all of this stuff is just band-aid therapy, you
yeah.
know? And, obviously there are things that have to be done, but the only one thing that I heard that was, I think, in the realm of, what was really the problem is this one guy, I can't remember what his name was, said, hurt kids hurt people.
Hmm.
So, like kids that are, our society. I mean, the
Yeah,
problem, the
basically
broken,
the whole mental health idea,
yeah.
and that if the kids were healthy psychologically, they wouldn't do that, and that's true. Um, uh, but how do you make a society of healthy individuals? That's
Yeah.
really what it boils down to. And first of all, to answer that question, first, I think we do well to understand the degree of interconnectedness uh, between all things, but certainly between people in the world. Uh, and to do that, I kind of like to use the analogy of a fishbowl, and consider the water in the fishbowl, the group consciousness. And then you got all these fish in the fishbowl. Well, if the water is polluted, or if the water is stress ridden or unhealthy, it's going to affect everybody in the fishbowl. All right, Scotty?
Yeah.
But now some people are going to be stronger than others, and that strength can come just from their own level of evolution, or it can come from their um, oftentimes I think dedication. That can be a great role of religion, is that people have faith in a god, and whatever their notion of spirituality is, be they religious or not, it creates a sense of moral fiber which gives strength. But nevertheless, we're all in the same polluted fishbowl. And some of the fish in that fishbowl, some of the people in that global consciousness are going to be affected by the pollution to greater degrees than others. And trying to Well, they'll use the analogy like with a tree. And if a tree isn't being watered, if the root isn't being watered, you get all these sick leaves. And trying to, paint each leaf green isn't going to do the trick. You just can't do it. It's just not going to work. Plus, like you said, Scotty, in a way, it's a Band-Aid. I mean, it's true that you can, infuse some health into each leaf, just like if you have sick fish in the fish bowl, you could deal with them individually. But really, it doesn't even work. In fact, as a veterinarian, I got training in how to treat fish in a fish bowl. And the way you treat them is you treat the water. And the water then affects all the fish and makes the unhealthy fish healthy. So the point being then that what we want to do is clean up global consciousness. If we could, that's like cleaning the water, putting fresh water, clean water in the fish bowl. And that makes all the fish healthier. In cleaning up the global consciousness, it's like the pollution in the environment. But I'm not talking about pollution that you see in the atmosphere that would affect that. I'm talking about the pollution in the interconnected awareness that is the source of life and the source of sustenance for all of humanity, for the whole world. And there's a technology for that. The ancient seers provided detailed instructions of how to go about that. But it's just amazing the degree to which society, is dedicated to one mentality or another. And if that doesn't conform to their mentality, and I've talked about this before, they just reject it. So it's like there's a mentality there that humanity's just not willing to go beyond. And I've told the stories about, at MIT, they did that study with kittens and all the lines in the room. They kept the kittens in were vertical. And when they took them out after several weeks or however long and put them in a room with all horizontal lines, all the kittens flipped over on their side. That just speaks to the magnitude of the intensity of mental conditioning. And that's been the history of humanity throughout the ages. I mean, the Vikings with their god, whatever, they thought they had it figured out. And the ancient Romans thought they had it figured out. And the Egyptians and everybody thought they had it figured out. And there were such things as enlightened societies in the past. But what happens is it just gets lost to time. And then the knowledge that the ancient seers provided, and it's still there, it's in the Vedic literature. And that knowledge that's provided falls by the wayside and gets lost to time. And then what happens is things start getting polluted more and more and more, and things get worse and worse. And it's been bad for a long, long time, thousands of years, obviously, I mean, how long have there been wars and all this horrible stuff going on? But sooner or later, society just buckles. There are little short-term bucklings along the way, World War II, you might say, or things like that. But right now we're in a time where the whole world is just nuts, and the things that are going on. I mean, it's just crazy. And go ahead.
Here's a question: is that obviously, the ancient seers had the technology, or is there anything we could be doing on a global scale to kind of try to, put the stuff in the water, so that all the fish get better? I mean, what can we be
For sure.
doing?
That becomes the question, doesn't it? How to
Yeah,
purify the water, how to
yeah,
cleanse the water, how to cleanse the global consciousness.
right.
Uh, uh, but before we get there, I also want to add that there are so many symptoms of this. It's of the problem. It's not just the kids who take assault weapons into elementary schools, but it's also I mean, just look at the history of our country, even recent history, the Vietnam War. I mean, what did we accomplish from that? Arguably nothing, And I remember, that was back. I was in high school, and the idea was that the domino effect. If Vietnam falls to communism, then it'll spread all over into Indonesia and everywhere, and it never happened. because after we left, it just didn't happen. And Iraq, the trillions of dollars we dumped into Iraq, and what did it accomplish? All we did is stir up a hornet's nest. Same with Afghanistan, trillions of dollars, nothing accomplished. What in the world is going on here? It's crazy. And obviously our attempts to bring about a better world are not working. They are not working. Okay. And so that's, I think, now, Scotty, where we can get into, okay, how do you clean up the mess? And the thing is, it's a technology, and it's a sophisticated technology, and it's a technology that can be quite and needs to be quite rigorous. It's like everybody knew about electricity. Maybe they didn't call it electricity, but they knew about it because from static electricity, when your clothes kind of clang, or lightning in the sky. Oh, okay. And so let's call that electricity. And at some point, people, I think it was with Benjamin Franklin, actually, where people started to realize that lightning was electricity. But the point is, you can work with electricity a little bit. When lightning is crashing, you go inside and hide, so you don't get struck by lightning, or static electricity, how to deal with that on your clothes or whatever. But the same goes for the technology of this notion of oneness, or the idea of, for example, religious ceremonies, prayer. I mean, on the one extreme, it's like howling at the moon. I mean, maybe that'll do something, but I mean, come on. And so there are ever increasing levels of sophistication to the actual technology of how to deal with that unified field, that consciousness. And as I've said in the past, Scotty, meditation, proper meditation. I mean, there are meditations that control the mind. That's just freezing the brain. That doesn't do it. You're not tapping into the unified field by doing that. Then there's the idea of the astral component to it, where, oh yeah, God is some guy up in the sky, some beautiful, sitting on some cloud, and isn't it lovely? I feel such ecstasy and such rapture, and that's wonderful, and that's my spiritual path. Well, that can give you a nice experience, huh, Scotty? A pleasant experience. But it's not really all that sophisticated, and it's more emotional indulgence, or in some cases, meditations and different things people do just to induce a trance state. Even in some cultures, they take drugs, to get it induce a trance state. And that's not what we're talking about. It's not a sophisticated technology. Like in the world today, look what we've done with static electricity, lightning. We've taken that technology of electricity to the point where we have computers and telephones and so many things. And that's what has to be done within the arena of spirituality. And that's how you clean the fishbowl of life. That's how you clean the group and global consciousness. But again, even that very idea, you see all these different people on the news with their solutions, one entry into the schools, or arm all the teachers, or ban all the weapons. Scotty, banning all the weapons is one that, I mean, if you make guns illegal, the bad guys aren't going to turn in their guns. All you're going to do is, if there's less people will be able to defend themselves because they're law-abiding citizens, so they turned in their guns. The point there is that on the surface level, there is no solution, and we're groping at straws. We're grabbing at straws, trying to find a solution in there on a level of life where there is none. So the ancient seers did give us a technology from these ages in the past, when there were enlightened ages, and there were enlightened cultures, there were enlightened civilizations in the past. And archaeologists more and more are discovering these different places around the world where they had knowledge that we don't even have any comprehension of, you know? And what were the pyramids built for? We have no idea, you know? And there's stuff like that all over the place. But isn't it incredible that in the Vedic literature, in the Vedic cognitions, that knowledge is there. But because people are identified with the lines going vertically as opposed to horizontally, if I can use that analogy, uh, they don't pay any attention to it. It just sits there in the wayside in some stacks of some college library, and the scholars really don't pursue it. There are scholars, there are Vedic scholars, but they're largely ignored, you know, which is
Well,
incredible.
even in an enlightened society, there's gonna be some anomaly that like does something terrible or whatever, right? Or is it? I mean,
Well,
it's
see
the
that's a very
nature of existence, right?
yeah, that's an interesting thing, and that gets into a whole other subject of the idea that everything cycles. So you have enlightened ages, then you have ignorance coming, and then you get total age of Kali Yuga, which we're in now, which is an age of total oblivion. Then it cycles back, and within that, those major, and we're talking, you know, tens or hundreds of thousands of years in those major cycles. There are many cycles. There are brief periods of an enlightened age and brief periods of a dark age. So everything's cycling, but with the little pulsations along the cycles, you know, like that. Uh, um, but was that responsive, Scotty? Did I?
Well, yeah, that, but also, I mean, it's just like you just. I was just thinking, there's a healthy body. Somebody has a healthy body, but every once in a while, there's a cell that misdivides and does something bad, and somebody gets cancer, or
Yeah,
whatever. And doesn't
yeah,
kind of like, even if we clean this fishbowl, every once in a while, there's still going to be some crazy, weird thing that spins off and just
that's probably that's
shoots
true.
somebody or
You know,
steals something or does
that's
something.
true. But to really get into the dynamics of that might be beyond the scope of this podcast, because then we're
Yeah,
getting into the nature of the different ages, the different
yeah,
what is an enlightened age like? What is age of ignorance like? Like right now, we're in Kali Yuga. There's still good people around,
yeah,
but there's just so much pollution, and so many people then have succumbed to that pollution and just acted, you know, horribly, you know.
yeah,
And the enlightened ages, there's age of enlightenment, and then there's times when things erupt, and then the transitions, you know. So yeah, but that's kind of a complicated thing, you know.
yeah.
But you know, we have Memorial Day now. Tomorrow is Memorial Day, and the military, the warriors, even the politicians and the kings and like that throughout the ages, they're all members of what's called a kshatriya class, a kshatriya caste, if you will. And kshatriya, too, all the different castes, you know, can get polluted. But the kshatriya class in its pure form is upholders of dharma of dharma of society, right action of the people, things like cultural integrity, nobility, honor, righteousness. You know, but and I've known so many people in the military, and that's why they're there, is because they believe in that. They believe in those kind of values that are so laudable. But I mean, Lord Krishna was a kshatriya, you know, but what happens, that gets polluted too. And then you get people that are declaring wars and making bombs and everything for the money. And it all becomes so obscenely, twistedly political, you know? So we're talking about a technology here that by purifying the global consciousness, it purifies all of that stuff. It doesn't just, you know, help the mentally ill kids that get an AK-47 and go kill people. It helps the purify all the different lines of life, all the different channels of life, all the different aspects of life simultaneously. You clean the water in the fishbowl, and all the fish do better. You see?
No, you're talking about what's happening at Mount Soma, right? With
Well, sometimes I like to think of Mount Soma as uh, an ancient technology research institute. But there are so many different ancient technologies that the first one, which opens the awareness of the people by expanding awareness, it opens the people to all the other ancient technologies. So the fundamental one is to clean the fishbowl. And that's what Mount Soma is about. The technology is there, it's described in detail. We have the plans. There's great scholars in South India that have the cognitions and have dedicated much of their life to learning about that and how to build that. And so to me, it was like, why not? I mean, back in the early '80s, when I learned about it, I said, why don't we build it? It's a type of facility. And if you look at it, if you look at the design, it almost looks like a giant, huge loudspeaker in a way, because just the way the walls go and everything. And what it does then is like you have the satellite dish and it picks up the signals. Well, this is designed to pick up and resonate with the underlying coherence and intelligence, the Chaitanya value, if you will, Bhavatitam value that upholds the coherence that is the source of the intelligence, coherence, and wisdom that supports the entire universe. And so it breathes that into the environment. And it's a technology that with a design, and we have the design, but see, it's not just the design. It's also once you have the machine, if you will, the technology, the Vastu buildings and all that, then it has to be operated. It has to be used. It's like, okay, fine, you got this great violin, but can you play it? And that is an art that goes far beyond what I even imagined when I first learned about it, because we have the pundits who know the mantras, know the chants. And what are those? Those are sounds that resonate with the cosmos. And so all the different facets of that diamond of divinity, if you will, there are mantras that resonate with each of those facets. And so by knowing, which facet to resonate with in this unified field generator that we're building at Mount Soma, what you do then is you radiate that value. And what value are we radiating? Once again, the value that purifies global consciousness, just so that people start living in harmony with their own true nature, which is divine and coherent and harmonious and life supporting. Clean the goldfish bowl. That's it. And once we do that, all the other facets will start to reverberate. But see, there's so much more to it even than just that. How to build it is one thing. How to operate it is another thing. And how to deal with so many things that go on around that is still another thing. And what I mean by that, when I first decided I was going to build Mount Soma, there was a pundit in India, and a very amazing comment he made, very wise comment, really. He said, "You can't do that." And I said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Because they will destroy you." And at the time, it didn't make any sense to me. Well, what's he talking about? Who's going to destroy me, But positive attracts negative, and it does so in some very interesting ways. First of all, just criticism. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. I'm sure some people listening to this podcast right now are saying, "Oh boy, that's pretty far-fetched. Unified field generator, cleansing global consciousness." I mean, and so first, it's just plain out criticism and disbelief. Another one, amazingly, is competitiveness and jealousy. Well, what makes you think or it's My response to that is, it's not me. It's there. It's in the Vedic literature, But nevertheless, you get that sort of a thing. And the other thing is, when the fishbowl is polluted, they can't see beyond a few feet in front of their face. You could say it that way. So the vision isn't there. It's just too hard to see beyond the limited world that people have become identified with, and so it becomes rejected. Another thing is time. Scotty, you and I were talking about what was it called? In Thailand.
Oh, Angkor Wat.
Angkor Wat, yeah. It's and some people have said to me in the past, well, isn't that an enlightened city? From just a cursory glance at it, it could have been, but it's certainly not now. And for one, it all has to be maintained, and that thing is all overgrown, and it's just not what it was at one time. And secondly, just through time, things get compromised. And I've talked about that before, how one of the kings switched it from the Vedic literature to a different religion, and that just blows the whole thing. And then one of the kings wanted to make it a mausoleum, and in the heart of the thing, he wanted to put his dead body after he died. And hello, So the knowledge it's delicate, just like Scotty, you were talking about, and so to maintain it is delicate. Also, every religion has different factions, and some of them are more pure than others. Even within the arena of Sanskrit knowledge, of Vedic knowledge, there are all sorts of offshoots of Hinduism. And a lot of them are, like I talked about, left-handed tantra, which is basically black magic. They don't think it's black magic because they do these mantras and these techniques, and all of a sudden they're seeing lights and everything, and they go, "Oh my God, I'm enlightened. It's great," but it's a distortion. And then we get into the yugas that we talked about, and there are different techniques for different yugas. All that is in the Veda, but right technique, wrong yuga doesn't work. So there's an art to maintaining the whole thing in a manner that's in harmony with nature now. All of these things go into creating, maintaining, operating, and sustaining a unified field generator, an enlightened city. And it is even more of an art, I must say, than playing the fine violin. It's a technology, but it's a highly sophisticated technology. It's a highly elusive technology. And there's so many forces trying to compromise it. Positive attracts negative, you see? So at Mount Soma, that's why we are so dedicated. I am so dedicated to not allowing the thing to get compromised. It's not fanaticism. It's, you could say, technology. It's science. It's not fanaticism. If somebody who invented a cell phone and somebody else says, well, it's so nice, but why don't we stick a picture tube in the middle of it? Well, because it won't work anymore, and it doesn't mean the scientist is a fanatic. It means he's a scientist. And that's the beauty of Vedic knowledge, and is that it's got both hemispheres of the brain. It's got the spiritual, the personified, the dedication, the love, but it's also got rooted in the purity of science and technology. And when those two unify together, only then can you build an enlightened city that really works. But every step of the way, I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many times, somebody wants to come and, oh, well, Mount Soma is so cool, but why don't we do this? And, why can't we let other people do Brahmin mantras, that even if they're not Brahmin? Well, no, it's a physiological thing. And so what mantras you even do, it's a function of the nature of your own unique physiology. And then people get into, oh, well, that's so arrogant. Or I've also heard, oh, well, that's just old fashioned. It's not old fashioned. It's technology. you know? And so Mount Soma is a place where we honor that, we uphold that, we pursue that, we understand that, and with humility, we honor it. But at the same time, we discern. Like Shankara said, the spiritual path is a path of discernment. You have to be discerning. You have to use good judgment. It has to come from, not just from common sense, but even wisdom. And so all of that goes into not just the creation, but the management of an enlightened city. And in the Vedic literature, it says one enlightened city is enough for each continent. I remember thinking, well, if there's an enlightened city, why don't we build it? Why hasn't anybody done it? But after 20 years at this, I know full well why nobody's done it. And that's because it's not easy. And you meet with a great deal of opposition because the global consciousness doesn't want to change. It's identified with its perspectives, you see. But we just keep a steady hand on the rudder. We move forward. And with the dedication that we have, it will unfold. And we're looking for support. Really, we need help. Small donations are great, but what I'd really like to do is find some billionaire that, it's interesting what some of these billionaires spend their money on. They got all this money, and what should I do? Well, build a rocket ship. Well, that's good. Or explore the depths of the ocean. Well, that's good. But somewhere out there, there's got to be a billionaire that hears this and it does make sense. And they say, okay, I'm going to fund the thing. Let's get this thing built. And can you imagine how frustrating it is? I've been watching these documentaries Memorial Day weekend, about the wars and the terrible stuff that's happening. Can you imagine how frustrating it is to have this knowledge, to know this technology, and to see all that going on? And we know how to fix it. We know how to clean the fishbowl. It's the pollution in the fishbowl that makes all these people crazy, creating all these wars and these battles. So that even the kshatriyas, even the military people that are adhering to an ideal, are led into battles that make no sense. Because it's not just the military, it's the political leaders, it's the whole international conflicts. The whole thing is just nuts. On all levels, it's nuts. So let's clean the fishbowl. And if you know a billionaire out there, send them my way, and let's see if we can get this thing built, because what's going on now is just too ridiculous and too unnecessary. But according to the ancient seers, we are now entering a period where that transition is going to happen. And our part in it would be to create and build Mount Soma and get this thing completed. And it would bring it about, at least for this continent. That's what the ancient seers assure us of. And so let's do it, All right, Scotty, is there anything else?
No, I think, obviously Mount Soma, building Mount Soma, and then the other thing everybody can be doing is meditating properly. And I guess if you don't know what the proper meditation, you can go to your website, the michaelmamas.net, and see how to
You know what? That's a good. Those are good points. Scotty brings up another thought too. First, you can go to YouTube and go to Michael Mamas channel, MAMAS, Michael Mamas channel, and the first couple of things that come up there, how to meditate properly.
Yeah.
And by properly we mean an awareness that doesn't control the mind, doesn't just induce ecstatic states of emotion or anything like that, but actually brings the awareness to that unified field level and wells that coherent, intelligent, harmonious value throughout the whole physiology. Infinitely healing purifies the physiology, you see. Please do it, Yeah. And what was the other thing? Oh, the other thing is, before we were doing podcasts, I was doing blogs. And,
Right.
And these things all still appear, on the same blog page, michaelmamas.net. And one of the real lively parts of the blogs used to be the interactions, the comments afterwards. People would comment, I would respond. People would have questions, I would respond. And if you just go to michaelmamas.net, you'll see the most current podcast. You'll see this podcast today listed, and then you can make comments. And just click on the comment, make a comment. You don't have to leave your name if you don't want. You can make it anonymous. We totally respect that. Or you can leave your name, what have you. And but we do respect, those who wish to be anonymous. Make your comment, and let's have a lively interaction. That was a great part of when we used to blog, but kind of got away from that with the podcast. So I hope to hear from you, and we'll go from there. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week.